You come almost to the end of where there is green commercial agriculture, and there you find Red Willow Vineyard. Waiting in the shade is Jonathan's father, Mike. In the shade of the chapel, he shares with us stories of how this all began. These are the stories of the beginning of modern Washington wine.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Time. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about?
Probably.
I'm sure there's a ton of things, but
Probably, as far as Red Willow goes, I would say it's multi-generational. I would represent on this farm, we're approaching 100 years now. So I would represent the third generation. John would be the fourth, and his kids and some of the other grandkids are out here working, and there seems to be some interest in it. So at least working a little bit, there's 5 generations.
wow.
And that's another important concept for us. We're seeing so much turnover. A vineyard is controlled or owned by somebody, developed by somebody, and 30, 40 years later, somebody comes along and it changes hands. So there's some value to that. It takes time to learn the soil, the identity, how we grow the grapes, and interacting with the wineries. So that's one thing. I think increasingly we're finding Red Willow is tending towards right bank blends that are a little bit more, and there's so many ways to make a great wine. I mean, you can take maybe 10 different vineyards, put them together, have a good winemaker, and have a catchy name on it, and it's a really nice wine. But it does not have that sense of place. You can't say, well, this comes from that vineyard and that identity and that consistency, whether that's important or not. I mean, perhaps it's not to some people, but so anyway, David Lake always instilled that, and it's very hard to take a single variety and a single block of grapes and make a consistently great wine out of it. You almost have to, if you want to highlight the place, you often have multiple varieties, multiple clones, blocks. David Lake, I think, towards the end of his career, we had 9 different blocks of Syrah. And it was just like a painter's palette. He would, at some years, it would be maybe this, that, and the other block. And the following year, it might be some different blocks. So it's a way of adding complexity, even though it's from one vineyard. We're finding, I mentioned right bank blends, we're finding we've done quite well. We seem to be in the sweet spot for Cabernet Franc. And, Merlot has done well for us and kind of been forgotten, and we're being resurrected again. Really does well blending it with Cabernet Franc, and Cabernet Sauvignon just kind of a supporting role. And we're finding a handful of very top wineries are starting to do that for us. We're not a super hot site. We're kind of right in the middle. And a right bank blend has really been a good way to showcase Red Willow anyway.
Excellent. Well, when rootstocks up here, are you guys on own-rooted? Because you're here?
Own rooted.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's just, that's the beautiful thing here in Washington, is that you guys have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Probably, speaking of just Washington generally, instead of Red Willow in particular, you've noticed it's a desert,
right?
A true desert, they say, and right where we're at is somewhere between 6 and 8 inches of precipitation a year, and the majority of that's in the winter time.
Right.
If we have a quarter of an inch rain, that's almost a gully washer for us, we think. And so it's quite dry, low humidity. The evenings cool down quite a bit. We're right on this bottom base of this Atanum Ridge, and you notice right now throughout the night there's almost always this gentle breeze.
Yeah.
It's not a windy site, but there's air movement. It's northern latitude. I think they say that during the longest day of the year, we're nearly 2 hours longer sunshine if you compare Seattle to San Francisco.
Right.
So we have long day lengths during this ripening time. About September 21st, which is right in the beginning and right into harvest, the days quickly are getting shorter. And September 22nd, we start being shorter days than San
Right.
Francisco. So very, very quickly our nights shorten up. The vines have this signal that
Seasons are
winter is
changing.
closing in very quickly. We come out of dormancy, out of bud break, maybe, I usually say tax day, April 15th. I mean, that's a general day. But we're 3 weeks at least later than a southern latitude. So we have a very compressed, efficient growing season. The winters can be borderline. And we haven't had a devastating winter since '96. But winters are still an issue on certain locations and stuff. So the vines go into deep dormancy. It's not just, they lost their leaves and they kind of sit there and then they come out again. I mean, it's a well-defined dormancy that we have here. So I mean, these are, if you put a number of these things together, it's hard to find another place in the world that matches the desert region. The latitude, the coldness, but not totally bitter cold. I mean, you say, well, why couldn't you move a lot farther north? Well, it's just that much colder, and you'd lose some vineyards. So anyway, it's a special place to grow grapes.
Indeed. The wines show that.